Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the first Criterion Collection Blu-ray update for 2022. I can't believe that is odd, that this is technically, well, my third year of doing Blu-ray videos on the Criterion Collection. Last year I had went through the 80s and the 70s, and now this year is the 60s, but there are a couple of other 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, or in this case 2020 movies that either I have missed because of the director's name or because they just came out this year, which in this case is the one right in the center. But with that being said, I have 5 editions here that we're going to be going into, and we'll start up with one of the 80s films I had missed here. So the first film here is actually an 80s movie I did miss that could have been a potential Oscar-nominated film because I believe the director has been nominated previously, I believe, for a BAFTA award. And this is Spy Number 654 from 1984 by Alex Cox, Repo Man. So as you can tell with the theming, it's basically all green here. This is kind of like somewhat of a, like, for those who don't know what a Repo Man is, I got this. It's basically, how can I put this? I haven't seen the movie in a while, but it's basically a couple of guys who takes cars because some of the owners of the car have yet to pay something, like either a bill or something like that. I really don't know. Like I said, it's been a few weeks since I'd last seen this film. And we focus on a young man who just, who was kind of like some sort of part of like a gangster or something like that, but decided to try to be useful to do something like this. And while this is going on, some sort of an alien abduction of that is being trying to figure out because, like, some sort of a human alien that is with an alien car that's been kind of killing people if you open the back of the trunk, and only your like shoes remain. I don't know how it goes. I can't really go much into detail, but the movie does features Harry Dean Stanton, one of the most notable iconic faces in history. Not a lot of notable big other cast members in this movie, but a couple of notable some of Alex Cox's stars are usually in the film, like Cy Richardson, for an example. And, of course, the booklet here, there is a couple of elements here in the booklet that really doesn't, and it's kind of hard to do this all in one hand, but, okay, I can't do it, but it's basically, you also get kind of like a storyboard of, like, his original, like, how he actually wanted this to be a graphic novel, and then it turns into a movie, so, this is definitely a really good movie. I really like the intent of the build of it was, Alex Cox's direction. The reason why I ended up watching this and getting this is because, this month they had announced, the films for the month of April, and one of them was Walker, which I did saw, and I wasn't really a fan of that one. I couldn't find any way to find, I believe it was Sandy and Duncan, I believe that's the film he also directed, and that is also part of the collection, if I'm not mistaken. Just give me a second here. No, Sid and Nancy. I was close. I don't know why Sandy and Duncan came into mind. I can't find that movie anywhere on streaming services, so, oh well. But I do feel like this is definitely a great contender. I like the whole green aspect to the film. It's like of the cover art itself, like the main characters right here. Some of the like his best friend and a couple the alien, and then like Cy Richardson's in the back. You ever feel as if your mind had started to erode? So, yeah, it's kind of like a big search and finding thing. There's the disc right there. So, definitely a great start to this. So Well, and of course I have this thing standing up here because if I do, yeah, it falls. But I think we'll just move on right now to the next film. Next up is an actual Oscar-winning movie, and keep in mind when I do these Blu-ray things, I started with the films that did got an Oscar nomination, like going by decade, and go the ones that could have potentially been behind the filmmaker, like Repo Man for the 80s. And we start this up with Spy Number 728 from 1962 by Serge Morgan. I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's Sundays and Cybèle. One of the two French films I do have here from the 60s. Now, this is, of course, not my first film from the 60s. That was Valley of the Dolls, which was, if I'm remembered, last month's. No, November's, because I skipped December last month, so, November of last year. Now, this is, of course, an actual winning film. It won for a Best Foreign Language Film when it was originally released. But then, of course, you had that stupid rule where when a foreign film gets released in America the following year, got nominated other categories. So it did got in for a Best Scoring for Music Adaptation or Treatment and Best Adapted Screenplay. So, yeah, that rule was still kind of stupid, and it kind of is. And this is a black and white film, and this is basically about a relationship between in a young man who, of course, unfortunately had lost his consciousness after his time in the war, and a young girl. And it's basically like this whole journey of how these two characters come to connect with one each other, because the girl was left in an orphanage after her father abandoned her. And some people think that, oh, this guy is actually the potential person. I was thinking, because this movie is also kind of a bit of a controversial, I would say now. Some people would say this could be around of pedophilia, because there's kind of a love ballad between the two. But keep in mind, the male character is still unconscious from the war, so he's kind of like, basically, like he's very disabled. So he almost like his brain now kind of feels like, based on the movie, like more of a child. Although he does have a lover that he doesn't love, but the girl really loves this man. Now, yeah, the movie is a bit controversial, and the movie is not really well received. It got like a 55% now on Rotten Tomatoes. So this is a movie that probably doesn't work nowadays, but I still think this was definitely a great movie. This doesn't mean I support pedophilia or anything. Um, Age gap relationships, not really a good thing, especially you see a lot, and I mean a lot of female celebrities dating or married to older men, which, man, I like ever since the Weinstein effect, or like the hashtag Me Too movement. It's just like, you don't know if the man's a pedophile or they're gonna sexually harass you. I don't know, but like this is definitely a movie that I really recommend you. So, as thinking about it now, I almost thought that he was gonna adopt her, but it actually did not turn out to be. So, nothing going much in the booklet itself, except it does have like the stars. Ours here, Patricia Gotzi, who played the kid, is still alive today. I believe the main star, Hardy Kruger, is no longer living, if I'm correct. Yeah, that is true. Who? Yeah, he actually died as of this recording, on January 19th, 29th, 10 days ago. So, I don't know if I just didn't notice now, or is it just me? I think I did saw this, and it was just not too long ago, like Palm Spring. Yeah, I don't know if this is just recently, or if I first time discovered this or not. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, so he is no longer with us. He just passed away on January 19th of this year, so may he rest in peace. Definitely a great film from him that he starred in, and even though this might be a controversial movie nowadays, but I still recommend it nonetheless. Okay, next up, we start up with what is a recent release and my first Criterion Blu-ray that came out this year, and this is Spy number 1111. You can't really see it because of the quality. From 2020 by Kirsten Johnson. Dick Johnson is dead. This is the sixth Netflix film to be released on Blu-ray and DVD in the Criterion Collection. The previous ones being Alfonso Cuarón's Roma, Noah Baumbach's Marriage Story, Martin Scorsese's The Irishman, Rolling Thunder Review, a Bob Dylan story by Martin Scorsese, and Carrie Jo Fukunada's Beast of No Nation. So this is the sixth film and the second documentary from Netflix to be released on the collection. And of course, this was the front runner for the 2020 documentary feature race last year. But I did predict it was not getting in because of how popular it was, like Boys State, and it did not happen. But after seeing it, when this got announced, I believe it was in October? Yeah, it was announced in October when they announced their January roster. And this was one of them, the other one being The Piano, which I couldn't get through that film. It just, I don't know what was Jane Campion doing with that film. I only watched halfway through. I just couldn't get through that film. So yeah, there were a couple films in the collection. I just can't finish it because it's just I'm not getting into it. So, but it's not mandatory like the Oscar ones. So I would definitely have to watch the entirety of The Power of the Dog after the award season. But this is definitely a really great film. And as of this recording, Kirsten Johnson's father, Nick, I believe his real name is Richard, if I'm not Richard Johnson. Her father is still alive today, and this movie is basically about her father's going through dementia, which of course, The Father really kind of was also another movie that was released that year, starring Anthony Hopkins, that kind of fit well in that year. Dementia is definitely something that really has been a big, massive has caused a lot from Alzheimer's disease. This happened for many celebrities, mainly Glenn Campbell, I know for a fact. Gene Wilder, sadly. I believe Ronald Reagan. I think he did. I'm not. I don't have any Wikipedia page on front of me, but it is definitely a serious disease brain disease that really unfortunately takes life very seriously and gives you memory loss. And throughout the movie, this was filmed during 2019, even though this was released a year later, it just shows how his dementia really goes, that he did retire himself as a psychiatrist because of his diagnosis. But it also kind of his daughter plays decided to almost doing a filmmaking style of how he would actually die, outside of dementia, fun things, they decided to film together with stunt works and stuff like that, and even doing a funeral scene. It really is and having him coming out in front of the church to say thank you for his service, for a movie per se, for entertainment purposes. But this is definitely a must-watch on Netflix, because it is definitely a really calm and very heartfelt movie of how Kirsten's father really battles for dementia. And he, as I said, as of this recording, he is still alive today. So hopefully he battles through this until, unfortunately, it would be too late. But hope you're doing well, man. I meant sir. Next up, we go into France again, / Algeria, as this is Spy number 249, one of the older released films on DVD and then later on Blu-ray, from 1966, by, I don't know how to pronounce his name, Giulio Pontecorvo, if I'm not correct. The Battle of Algiers. So, yeah, I can't stand this up, so, anyways, so, Yeah, this is a real life war story about between the French army versus the Algerian citizens. Um, and it is really intense that you really like felt either you want to support the French army or more specifically the Algerian citizens for the French army really military specifically almost like kind of like dictating the country. But it's basically a battle between the army and the Algerian citizens, especially some of the biggest notable war people of this, especially Ali Laponti. Halti is definitely a real life person here that was portrayed in the film, like starring, I believe, is Sadi Yassaf, if I'm correct. I just had the cast list. No, Birmingham. No, Sadi Yassif, I believe, was the one character that I stood out with the most as Jean Cardel, aka Eli Hadi Jafar, which, yeah, there are some real characters. I believe there's some compost characters in this. I'm not 100% positive here, but it is really intense that you do feel like you support the Algerian people for the French military taking over. But this is like, I believe, like, when was this war again? Because it did actually exist. Um, yeah. Basically, yeah, the Algerian War from 1954 to 1962. And this is definitely one of the prime examples about this war going on between the two countries. And like it goes like a little bit opening scene, like it shows a scene that will be later in the film, and then of course you go back until you reach to the present. So kind of like one of those type of films, but it really works well. The black and white cinematography definitely was well done, as well as Sunday Cybèle, which I forgot to mention about that. And this booklet is the biggest one out of the 5 I have. Like, Repo Man's kind of close, but it mainly kind of highlights more specifically on one of the writers of the film, which I believe... No, it is the director himself, Gillo Pontecorvo, who is also one of the writers of the film. And this film, of course, actually was not screened in France for 5 years until 1971 because, of course, the movie calling out the French military government. Ennio Morricone actually did the score here, so with Pontecorvo, so that is definitely interesting. Man, so the director of the film written and scored the film. That is interesting. The film was where is it? I saw the awards. Where was it? Yeah, go critic reception. Yeah, so it did got nominated for Best Foreign Language Film in 1963, but of course, like the stupid American release date rule, it was because in 1969, it got nominated for Best Original Screenplay and Best Director for Pontecorvo. I'm sorry if I butchered these names. I'm not really familiar with like how to pronounce some of the words I've never heard before, like Algerian people's names. No offense to the Algerian community, it's just that it's kind of like I just don't want to butcher them. That's the problem. So definitely the artwork is really interesting, especially inside here. And in this one, you do get 2 Blu-ray discs here for this, and like one side you got the leader, I believe, for the Algerian one, and then you got the French military guy in the other. So definitely the biggest one here. In this one, you get a lot more documentaries about the French-Algerian War, and then you got the movie itself. So, and a couple of elements from the 2004 Criterion release date. So this is definitely one of the most controversial war films out there, especially for its ban in France for 5 years. But I do recommend it for specifically to get like it's one of the good movies that you do feel frustrated with, like specifically at the real life enemy, which in this case was the French military at the time. So although they are behaved as they have been for a long time, and they are now good, it's just that at the time they were the enemy for Algeria. And for the final Blu-ray here for the month of January, this is Spy number 57. I didn't realize that. One of the the oldest release here in the Criterion Collection from 1963. Excuse me, by it says, is it Stanley Donen? Is that correct? Yes, Charade, starring Cary Grant and Audrey Hepburn. And I'm going to be honest here, this is my first Audrey Hepburn movie. I know that's kind of a shock to say that for somebody who has not seen My Fair Lady or her Oscar-winning performance in Roman Holiday, because she was like one of the most important actresses of the 20th century for cinema, especially for the 50s and the 60s. So, yeah, Cary Grant, not really familiar with him, but I think the name does sound familiar. A couple other notable legends are in here, like Walter Matthau, I know of, and James Corden and George Kennedy. So yeah, this is basically kind of like a mystery film, and how can I put this? It's kind of like based on a short story, and it's kind of like a mystery, of course, as I said. How, if I remember this correctly, okay, it's basically, Hepburn, of course, had filed a divorce recently, and she meets Grant, and some people are trying to rob her, for all the money that she had gotten. And this person who, that Grant is following could be potentially a person that wants it, or somebody that actually, I can't really go much into detail because it'll be spoiler territory, or basically wants to fall in love with her. It's very, very difficult because it is a mystery film, so I can't really go much into it. So there's not really much. It did got nominated for the song, the title song, which I believe is called Charade. Yeah, it is. And very ironically, the full film is on the Wikipedia page for some reason. That's kind of odd. I don't know what that means. I watch it through Amazon Prime, but I don't think the Wikipedia page has good quality for that film. So, probably recommended through Amazon Prime. So, definitely a must watch. I can't really go much into detail because of spoilers, and that's basically it. And that kind of wraps up the first Blu-ray update for the month of January. For those who are new to the channel, you can hit that subscribe button. Comment down below if you have seen, any of these 5 films around here, and more 60s films to come. And let's see what other films will be joining in the ranks with that collection right over there.